Hi, nice to meet
Hi,
you.
hi, Neebz.
All right, y'all are set.
All right. Thank you for joining me. My name is Neebz. I host a podcast called Salaam Nerds. So we recap movies and television shows. I'm so excited to meet you guys. You guys look great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
No problem.
Thank you, Neebz.
Let me start off with a few questions. This one is for both of you. So I want to talk a little bit about authentic storytelling. Given the show's unique premise, what research or real life influences did you incorporate to ground this narrative, right? Like, is drug making really like making biryani? Because if so, my mom would be a great drug dealer.
Hitesh, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think this by the time I came on board, there was already the idea, that Shibani and the writers had, and a lot of writing had already happened. I don't think it had anything to do with the real world, any particular incident or character as such. I think were more interested in just the real women, how these real
Mhm.
housewives are and what they do in their lives, and what happens if their lives were to go topsy-turvy. So, how the show is not about criminals, it is about real life people that actually drew me to the show when I met Shibani for the first time. So I think it wasn't anything to do with real life, but to do with real people. How
Mhm.
these people are and what they do when they're put in tough situations and how they take a life which they may or may not want. So I think it was basis that. And of course, because it is a particular nature of a show and the women have a particular way, they're already dealing in cooking and dabbas. So they see everything from that lens.
Right.
They see even the most complicated things like making a drug, or even if they're doing a bank heist, or if they were robbing a bank or planning a murder, they would still go with their own reference point because that is the world they know. They don't know anything beyond. So that I think became the genesis for everything, which I thought was very unique.
I love that. How about Shibani?
Yeah, I think I think Hitesh has pretty much covered it all. We're taking women that aren't essentially from a world of crime and placing them in one, and so that's their reference point. That they come already with a world of knowledge that is specific to the world that they know. So their comparisons will be what they've already kind of learned and what they've dealt with, what their experiences are. And I think that's also kind of what made for interesting storytelling and interesting viewing. Because when you take women who aren't actually criminals and you place them in a situation like this, they go back to their regular lives.
Mm.
And so we see both worlds through the narrative. We're not just seeing the world from one lens, which is that one dark world of this drug cartel. We see different layers, and that's kind of, I think, what made these women so interesting. I think that's why people were able to resonate with them so much. And I think it's also what made interesting viewing in terms of just the comedy that it kind of lends itself to, or just the little, just the way they kind of move through the story.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. That's a great point, and that actually sets up my next question, which is about the characters that we have and the actresses that played them. I really love the different approach that you guys take in terms of like diversity, in terms of age, body type, social class, skin color. I feel like there was a character or a combination of characters that anybody can see themselves in. So I wanted to know, how did you approach crafting and cultivating these diverse backgrounds and motivations for some of these female leads? Shibani, you can go.
I think honestly, if I'm being really honest, the only thing that was kind of carefully crafted was really the age.
The age. Okay.
Everything else happened very organically. And it wasn't such a a conscious decision that they must be different body types and they must be different skin color and they must be from this part. I mean, yes, obviously where they come from in the country was something that we really wanted to touch upon because you want that flavor. India is such a beautiful blend of so many different types of people, that you want to really kind of feel that and touch upon that. So that was another conscious decision. But in terms of aesthetically, how each of them look, it just kind of fell into place very organically, and it wasn't something specific that we were hunting for. We were just hunting for good actors that could do justice to these characters, and we found with the women that we have, and with the combination of actors that we finally locked on, this is what it was, and their chemistry was important, and the
Mm.
dynamic that they had with each other was important. And I think a massive plus is that we're able to represent the entire country, because as
Yeah.
I said, we have a country filled with so many different types of Indians, and I think it's important to recognize that in a beautiful way without it kind of being in your face and on the nose.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad it happened so organically. That's really great.
Yeah.
My next question is for Hitesh. So you are able to create such a intense element of tension in the scenes and give the viewer a sense of anxiety. Could you talk about any like stylistic choices visually to portray that in the Dabba Cartel that makes it such different than other shows?
See, there are two aspects of that. The first part, honestly, has to do a lot with the writing. You know what, when you see a certain drama or a tension or anxiety in any particular sequence or a scene, so that is coming from the writers because, the way it has been written, only then, one can do what we have to do while filming it. But talking about stylizing and all that, I won't say it was limited to any particular scene as such, but at a broader level, the choice of basing it in Thane,
Mm,
that was an important thing because we wanted to move away from the Mumbai streets that we have seen a lot of times in these kind of
right,
dramas. Then the fact that we wanted to base it in monsoons, so because that lends itself a certain, so if you see pretty much 60-70% of the show has been shot in rains. So that
right,
automatically gives you a texture, both audio, both sound, so the everything is very hazy, everything is very dark. So it was a very conscious decision that there is no sunlight in these people's lives. There is no happiness in these people's lives. So visually also we wanted to just, take that away. So that was a very conscious stylistic call that, we discussed and with each other and with the DP Ishit that how do we bring the tension in their lives for the viewers. So I think that rain, monsoon, Thane, the bleakness of everything that helped us.
yeah, I noticed that too. That was actually one of my questions. The rain almost feels like a separate character in itself because it adds to the tension and adds to the element of suspense in the show, and kind of really makes it feel like, you're getting anxiety with them in that. So I really did notice that too. I thought that was really great. Another thing that I noticed, this question is for Shibani. One element that I noticed was that almost every character has like an opportunity to kind of walk away at some point and still be like up, but they get a little greedy, a little overzealous. Another phrase for that is flying too close to the sun, which is the reference to Icarus. And I noticed that name was dropped in the show, and I want to know, was that the main key theme that you want people to take away from Dabba Cartel?
The being able to get out and
Yeah, get
getting
out.
sucked back in.
Yeah, like not getting overzealous and not getting too greedy or flying too close to the sun. They had opportunities to be like, hey, we did it, we can get out now, but they wanted to do a little bit more, and that's what caused their downfall.
This is a really great question for Hitesh actually, because when
Okay.
he came on board, he had a lot of ideas about, what the central theme for this show is, and a lot of questions about why these women were doing what they're doing, and it was almost like a study that we had to do before we could move any further, because when you're talking about motivation, and when you're talking about justifying the reason why characters are doing what they're doing, you really need to dissect it, pull it apart, and understand what the intention behind continuing this path is and why they keep on choosing this. And the answer that we always came back to was a certain level of greed,
Hmm.
a certain level of wanting more from life. But I think Hitesh, you can talk about that more because you had some really good insights on this.
Yeah, I think that I would say would be the base of any good drama, when the characters' wants and needs don't really match with each other. So I won't really call it just greed or you can get out. It's like putting the characters in different circumstances, and that reveals, who the true character is. So sometimes you can, but you can't because of some other things, whether it is your moral dilemmas, whether it is ambition, whether it is greed, whether it is an absolute want for a character is absolute need. I think that makes richer characters and gives, a good foundation for a good drama where every character's needs and wants are very clearly defined. So I think that was, I would say, the base rather than just being greedy or ambitious.
Hmm.
So it's a combination of things.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed that portion of it. I think it really got me to feel for the characters a little bit. It's very easy for anybody to fall into that.
Mm.
Uh, Hitesh, I had another question for you. One thing that I think this show does masterfully is blend a little bit of comedy with suspense, which is not very easy to do. One can really undercut the other. How did you manage to blend the two?
Mm. I think it just happened.
Yeah,
I don't know how, I don't know, honestly. Again, to answer this question, a lot has to do with the writing, a lot has to do with the writing, but a lot of discussions which I generally bring on any project that I would do is about the tone. I'm personally very, very interested in, what Shibani is thinking about the tone of the show. I think I must have asked this question 120 times in different versions,
100%.
to Shibani, to Abbas, to writers, that what is the tone of the show? When a viewer watches this show, what do you eventually want that viewer to feel? I think that's a very important thing, according to me, that everyone should be on the same page. So I think that question and the answers to that led us to, find the tone of the show. That okay, we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. It's not going to be a very dark show. We want people to have fun while watching the journey, that and there are fantastical elements of women starting a new drug and all that. So there are a lot of leaps that one is taking, so you need to have enough belief in that while you're having fun. If you start taking yourself too seriously, it becomes a different show, and we were clear that is not where we want to go. So I think that tone helped us very initially, that okay, there has to be some elements of lightness and humor in the show, because you put five people together, any social group, whether it is five women or men or this thing, you put them together and you observe them from a distance, they will crack under pressure. They will start revealing their true personalities. So I think that was the base of it.
I
yeah.
think it's
No,
also important to kind of play on the inexperience of these women,
mm,
right? So that's what will just naturally bring out a little bit of humor because they're not from a world of crime and they're navigating this. They will navigate it with a certain level of inexperience and they're not aware of how certain things work, which kind of just lend itself to certain light comedic moments that naturally kind of sprinkled through the script with ease. So it was also it was kind of pretty easy to do because it's kind of what you expected. You wouldn't expect women who are from this world to just come in and say, "Hey, I know exactly how to run this drug cartel." So when they're fumbling and bumbling a little bit,
yeah.
that's when the comedy comes out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it really did help cut the tension a little bit and really made it for a good watch. I don't want to take up too much time because I know I only have a few minutes. My last question would just basically just be what initially sparked the idea of Dabba Cartel? How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I think the idea was to definitely create a female-led story. And I think the genre of crime drama was something that early on we knew we wanted to kind of touch upon only because we felt like that was the space where there wasn't really a lot of female representation. And so just those kind of two elements in itself allowed us to create a world, and we chose to create a world that was, like I just said, um, one which kind of was a combination of women that weren't from the world of crime, and so to see them navigate this and to see them go back to their regular lives, navigate this world of crime was a really interesting way to kind of tell this story. You have the quintessential dabba, which is such a, it's such an Indian thing, but it's also such a Bombay thing. And so it just felt like a backdrop that was different to other cartels that you've seen across the world. And so we thought it would be really interesting. And obviously, the characters, which a lot of people have resonated with, needed to be really developed well in order for people to resonate with them. And I think Hitesh did such a wonderful job with that because look, when you take five women like this who are different age groups from different places, different different kind of backgrounds and different stories. The female gaze that he has to be able to tell these stories with such tenderness and delicacy is really what is important. I mean, if you look at the scenes between Shahida and Preeti, on paper, those could have been shot and done anyway. But the choices that he made to be able to show just a love story between two women, rather than underline and emphasize that this is a gay story. He just showed a true love story. And I think that the depth with which he went with the characters was such a powerful layer of the storytelling, that he did justice to, because that is really what I believe has made this show so popular with people, because the one thing that they walk away with is we love the characters. And in order for a story like this to succeed, yes, you can have a crime drama, yes, you can have a drug cartel, but you've got to have people that an audience can be drawn to, whichever character it may be for you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to respect your time, but thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for answering these questions. I really had a great time talking to you. I really like the show. I can't wait for the second season, and I've been telling everybody I know about it. So hopefully you guys are
Please
very
do.
successful.
Please keep telling everybody you know.
I have.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
All
you,
right.
Rohan.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
It
much.
was great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.